Somewhere on the internet right now, a video with more than 100,000 views is telling people that the Book of Enoch calls a certain group of human beings untouchable, that the final tyrant of history, the one later tradition names the Antichrist, will reach for them and find that his hand cannot close. It is a good story. It is also, on one specific point, wrong. The word untouchable does not appear in the Book of Enoch. Not for the elect, not for anyone. In the Standard English translation, the one R.H. Charles made at Oxford in 1917 from the Ethiopic manuscripts, you can search all 108 chapters and you will not find it once. What you will find is stranger and honestly harder to sit with. Because the book is obsessed with hands. It records who raises them. It records whose get bound. And 4 separate times, in 4 separate sections, written in the same direction every time, it records whose hands everything ends up in when the story closes. The famous chapter, the one the viral videos quote, chapter 48, actually contains the answer. But the quotation always stops at verse 7. The answer is in verse 8 and verse 9, one breath further down the page. So this video will do 2 things the summaries never do. It will name the reason the text gives out loud with the verse number attached, and it will read you the 2 verses everyone stops before, the ones that flip the entire question. Not whether his hands can reach you, whose hands he ends up in. Start with where this claim actually lives, because it does not live in the Bible. Genesis gives Enoch 2 verses. He walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Taken, not died. The text never records a death, a burial, or a grave, and it never explains itself. Every other name in that genealogy closes with the same 3 words, and he died. Enoch is the one line where the pattern breaks. Then, sometime around the 3rd or 2nd century before the Common Era, writings began circulating under his name, claiming to be the record of what he saw. This is the book we call First Enoch, the Ethiopic Enoch, not the later Slavonic book, not the medieval Hebrew one that borrowed the name. First Enoch. The Epistle of Jude, inside the New Testament, quotes its opening chapter by name and calls it prophecy. 11 copies of it, in Aramaic, sat in the caves at Qumran among the Dead Sea Scrolls. But here is the detail that matters for tonight, and almost nobody who shares the untouchable claim knows it. The chapters that claim comes from the section scholars call the parables, chapters 37 to 71, are not among those 11 copies. Not one scrap of them surfaced in any cave. The parables survive complete in exactly one language on earth, Ge'ez, the liturgical tongue of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, which never removed Enoch from its canon, while the rest of Christendom quietly stopped copying him. Scholars still argue over when the parables were written. Most place them around the turn of the era, and they are Jewish, not Christian, in origin, which means everything you are about to hear predates the word it keeps getting attached to. Because, and let this be said plainly, the word Antichrist appears nowhere in the Book of Enoch. It barely appears in the Bible. 4 mentions, all in the letters of John, and John uses it for a plural, many Antichrist already in the world. The lone end times villain with the capital A is a later construction. What Enoch has instead is more uncomfortable than a monster. Enoch has a category. He calls them the kings and the mighty. The scholar George Nicholsburg, who wrote the standard academic commentary on this book, reads the kings and the mighty not as demons and not as symbols, but as exactly what the words say: ruling elites, political and religious power at its peak. Scholars debate which rulers the author had in his sights: Greek kings, Roman governors, or the compromised priest kings of Judea itself. And the fact that the debate is possible is the point. The description was written loosely enough to fit whoever holds the throne in any century, because the author was not drawing a portrait, he was drawing a recurring shape. The text describes them in chapter 46 with an auditor's precision. Their power rests upon their riches. Their faith is in the gods which they have made with their hands. They persecute the houses of his congregations, and the faithful who hang upon the name of the Lord of spirits. And then chapter 46 adds one more line about them, and this is where the real subject of the book announces itself. They raise their hands against the Most High. That is the first move in a pattern the rest of this video is going to follow. A raised hand. Watch what the book does with it. The Book of Enoch opens its story of evil not with a serpent, but with a descent. 200 angels, called the Watchers, abandon their station and come down to teach humanity what it was never meant to hold: weapons, sorcery, the cosmetics of seduction, the arts of domination. Their leader in corruption is named Azazel, and their children are the giants who ruin the earth. If you want the pattern every later tyrant story is built on, including the Beast of Revelation, it is here, 22 centuries early. Corruption from above, forbidden power, a reach that keeps extending. Now watch the first thing heaven does about it. The command given to the archangel Raphael, chapter 10, verse 4, is specific. Bind Azazel hand and foot, not destroy him, not argue with him. Bind the hands first, then the darkness, then the desert pit, sealed until the great judgment. The being who taught mankind to make weapons with its hands is recorded in his very first sentence of punishment, losing the use of his own. The book does this again with a tree. In chapter 25, Enoch is shown a fragrant tree on a mountain shaped like a throne, and the archangel Michael tells him that no mortal is permitted to touch it till the great judgment. This, for the record, is the only sentence in all 108 chapters where touching is forbidden. One tree. But read how the sentence ends, because almost nobody does. It shall then be given to the righteous and holy. The one untouchable thing in the entire book is not locked away forever. It is being held, reserved, and at the end it changes hands, downward, into theirs. Forbidden now. Hand it over later. Keep that shape in mind. The book is about to apply it to people. The parables build to a scene in chapter 62 where the kings and the mighty are finally stood in front of the figure the text calls the elect one, the Son of Man. We have walked through that courtroom in an earlier episode, the dare to recognize him, the pain that seizes the rulers like a woman in labor. What matters tonight is the verdict, because the verdict names the crime, and the crime is the reach itself. Verse 11, they are delivered to the angels of punishment to execute vengeance on them because they have oppressed his children and his elect. Read that honestly, and you have to notice what it concedes. They have oppressed. Past tense. It happened. The book is not describing a force field that kept every believer's body safe, and anyone who tells you otherwise has not read The Martyrs, blood crying out in chapter 47. Revelation says the beast was given power to make war on the saints and to overcome them, and Enoch does not contradict that for a moment. Hands close on flesh in this book. Skin was never the thing that could not be touched. So what was? Verse 12 gives the first hint of the reversal. The fallen rulers shall be a spectacle for the righteous and for his elect. The audience and the accused have traded places. And verse 13 closes the door. The righteous and elect shall be saved on that day, and they shall never thenceforward see the face of the sinners and unrighteous. Not a pause in the persecution. A permanent subtraction. The tyrant is not merely defeated, he is removed from their field of vision forever. The book even lets the fallen rulers speak once, a chapter later, and it is the only speech they get. They confess everything. They admit their splendor was borrowed. They glorify the Lord. They spend a lifetime denying, and they ask for one thing, a little respite, a pause before the darkness. The request is refused. Their confession is recorded as accurate and worthless in the same breath, because it was made at the door of the sentence instead of the door of the life. But none of that answers the question in this video's title. Why them? What, specifically, made this group unreachable at the level that counts when their bodies plainly were not? The text answers that question in one chapter, and it is the most quoted and least finished chapter in the book. Chapter 48. The Son of Man is named before the head of days, and the text reaches back past creation to date the naming. Before the sun and the signs were created, before the stars of the heaven were made, his name was named before the Lord of spirits. Older than the sun, fixed before the first morning. And the chapter immediately tells you what that name is for. He shall be a staff to the righteous, whereon to stay themselves and not fall. And then, verse 7, the line every summary quotes and every summary stops at. For in his name they are saved. There is the reason, plainly, with the verse number attached, as promised. The elect are not shielded by their strength, their hiding, or their record. They are attached to a name that was spoken before their attacker existed. The parables even say the knowing of it is not automatic. Chapter 62, the Son of Man was hidden, and the Most High preserved him, and revealed him to the elect. Hidden, then revealed. Not a bloodline, not a nationality, not a badge a scanner could find. A revealed identity, and the text says even the elect had to be shown it. Now, here is where every viral summary rolls the credits, and here is why they should not. Verse 7 is not the end of the thought. The same voice keeps speaking, and in verse 8, the camera swings around to the other side of the room. In these days downcast in countenance shall the kings of the earth have become, the strong who possess the land. For on the day of their anguish and affliction they shall not be able to save themselves. The same chapter, the same name. And the name that saves one group is now measured against the other, and they do not have it. Then verse 9, the Lord of spirits, speaking of those kings, in the first person, I will give them over into the hands of mine elect, as straw in the fire, so shall they burn before the face of the holy. As lead in the water shall they sink before the face of the righteous, and no trace of them shall any more be found. Sit with the direction of that sentence. The chapter that explains why the elect cannot be reached ends by placing the reachers into their hands. Straw does not negotiate with fire. Lead does not argue with water. The question the title of every one of these videos asks, can he touch them, was answered by the text at a right angle. He is handed to them. If chapter 48 were the only place the book said this, you could call it a flourish. It is not the only place. It is a drumbeat, and it crosses every section of the book. The parables again, chapter 38, at the very opening of the section. When the congregation of the righteous shall appear, then shall the kings and the mighty perish, and be given into the hands of the righteous and holy. And the next verse adds the coldest sentence in the chapter. From thenceforward, none shall seek for themselves mercy from the Lord of spirits, for their life is at an end. The Apocalypse of Weeks, a completely different section, older material, chapter 91. In the 8th week, that of righteousness, a sword shall be given to it, that a righteous judgment may be executed on the oppressors, and sinners shall be delivered into the hands of the righteous. And the epistle near the end of the book, chapter 98, addressed directly to the powerful in the second person, like a summons served by mail. Ye shall be delivered into the hands of the righteous. It is the verse that stands immediately above a line we examined in another episode, the curse that promises the cruel that no grave shall be dug for them. Count them: chapter 38, chapter 48, chapter 91, chapter 98. 4 different places, spanning the parables, the weeks, and the epistle, and the grammar never once runs the other way. Nowhere does the Book of Enoch say the tyrant's hand is stopped by a wall. Nowhere does it grant the elect a dome of safety. What it does, with the patience of a court clerk, is record a transfer of custody, scheduled before the sun, executed at the judgment, in which the men who raise their hands against the Most High are placed into the hands of the people they reached for. The untouchable claim is not just missing a word, it has the image backwards. The elect were never behind glass, they are the destination. Which reframes what protection means in this book, and it is worth being precise. Because the text is. It is not magic armor, and it is not luck. It does not promise a life without wounds, and anyone selling it as one is selling something the manuscript refuses to say. The nearest modern word is jurisdiction. The kings and the mighty operate their entire reign on one assumption, that everything under their power is theirs to handle. Enoch's answers a property record older than the light they rule by. A name spoken before the stars, and a people attached to that name by revelation, which no amount of surveillance can locate, and no amount of force can transfer. You cannot steal what was never for sale. You cannot keep what was assigned to someone else before you drew breath. Readers of the New Testament will recognize the architecture. The revelation of John describes servants of God sealed on the forehead before the judgment is allowed to fall, a marked number, famously 144,000. Enoch is centuries earlier and does the same work with different instruments. Revelation counts its protected group. Enoch never counts. Enoch names. 2 books, far apart, reaching for the same idea, that who a person belongs to was settled before the disaster started, and that the settlement is invisible from the outside. And for the elect themselves, the book's last word is not survival but exchange. Chapter 62 once more, after the kings are led away. The righteous and elect shall have been clothed with garments of glory, the garments of life from the Lord of spirits. And your garments shall not grow old, nor your glory pass away. The rulers dressed their power in riches their hands had made. It burned like straw. The people they reached for are handed clothing that cannot wear out, from hands that cannot lose. So return, one last time, to the picture this all started with. The most feared figure in prophecy, reaching for a group of ordinary people. The Book of Enoch never freezes his hand in the air. That image belongs to the internet, not the manuscript. And it undersells the text, which is the strange thing about the viral version. A wall would only mean the reach failed. The manuscript means the reach was recorded, filed, and priced before it happened. In the manuscript, the hand is allowed to reach, and history is allowed to hurt, and the book writes both down without flinching. What the manuscript adds is a ledger the reacher cannot see. His restraints were being forged while he reached, the same iron chains Enoch watched the angels preparing. His name was never written into the ownership of the people in front of him, and on the day the ledger is opened, the direction of every hand in the story reverses at once. He reaches. The text lets him reach. It simply never lets him keep. And the 4 quietest verses in the Book of Enoch agree on where his story ends, not at their throats, in their hands.